All right. Welcome to episode 55. I'm Mike.
I'm Dan.
Vincent.
Both at the same time. 55 episodes. We'll get it right eventually. All right. Jump right in.
All right, our first issue here is crossover number 4, the always anticipated series from Donny Cates and Jeff Shaw. So our crew here, all the characters we've been following, they basically head to a giant museum where humans kind of stash all of the random loot from the beings that come over from the crossover. So like Captain America's shield is here and all kinds of armors and things like that. They're trying to find something that will help them get into the dome. And they find Valofax, which is the sword from God Country, which I haven't read. We get a little flashback sequence, like several pages, which is like totally more relevant to God Country than this. And then there's reference that basically the U.S. government has an amalgam program, which is where they Frankenstein together superheroes, or the characters from the Dome. It's clearly a subtle. Well, it's not really subtle, but it's not it's not in your face like some other things here have been. But the amalgam word is obviously meant to evoke the 1996 or maybe 7 or so crossover mess, that same name between Marvel and DC, following DC versus Marvel. But also the visual aspect of it is also probably referencing stuff like Marvel's Combo Man, which was this dumb like amalgamated monstrosity, which was somehow like a tie-in comic to Combo, the snack food. This is obviously still good, and there's a really strong double-page montage of Madman, which is really fun. But I think I said this on the last issue too. This is not quite as exciting as previous issues. I think the first one, especially setting up the premise and some of the teasers, was a huge, hype deal, and then the second one kept a lot of that same momentum. These last few, it's kind of slowed down, but I'm hoping it, has a couple more of those wow moments as we go along.
Yeah, outside of the moment with Madman with the yo-yo, I guess it's Donny Cates not going to be able to be pulling in as many things as we thought. There's clearly like Captain America's shield on a wall and like Homelander's costume on a dummy in the background. But it's like that wink, wink, nudge, nudge kind of deal, not actually those characters like we've seen before, like Batman and Silhouette. But we've now had 2 former Donny Cates properties make its way into this book. And now I'm wondering, is this really just Donny Cates' crossover, or is it actually crossover? But the amalgam thing is a good idea where I think they could probably get away with more combinations of things and just, slight recolorations and get away with it. Otherwise, though, I mean, Jeff Shaw's art still great, and it's a fun book to look at and a fun book to read.
Yeah, DC can't quite sue him for Superman if it's just like Superman's arm.
Exactly.
On to Batman's leg.
Yep. All right. Batman Black and White number 3. It's our 3rd issue of the Prestige series. We have the stories The Cavalry by John Ridley and Olivier Coipel, A Kingdom of Thorns by Bilquis Evely, I Am the Bat by Bengal, Unquiet Night by Tim Seeley and Kelly Jones, and Legacy by Nick Dragotta. I felt by far this was the weakest issue that we received from the Prestige series so far. Some great art, but otherwise the stories really lacked. I guess if there's a running theme for this issue, I felt it was Generations and Legacy, because there's not a lot of Bruce in this issue. I don't think, then there's only one Bruce story, and it's the Kelly Jones and Tim Seeley one, and he's a ghost in that. Ridley and Coipel with the next Batman story where he's saved and teams up with his sister, who's acting is basically his Robin. I'm thinking this is their first appearance too, so thus proving that everything kind of connected to next Batman is kind of just broken and unfocused, because this week is also the debut of that Second Son digital first series that we didn't check out this week, so maybe she has a play in that as well. I'm not entirely sure, but we didn't read that. But I don't know how I feel about everything of the mythos of the next Batman being placed around like 13 different books here and there. Bilquis Evely, with her writing debut here for DC Comics, delivers some stunning art and spreads here. really beautiful stuff, but with a knight story, like a literal knight Batman fighting what was basically a goddess of nature. Maybe it was Poison Ivy. I'm unsure. Stiff writing, but the art was fantastic. Bengal with the standard Batman taking down some street criminals and a car chase story, but the reveal that it isn't Bruce, it's his daughter. It seems so to be that way. I don't know if it's Helena, but it seemed like a woman. But maybe it also could have been Damien. Unsure about like with the costume and the art style. But nonetheless, it was all right. The Celia and Jones story with the Ghost Batman has Zatanna and Etrigan, and it was neat, but otherwise, it was meh. I mean, you're here for Kelly Jones's art, and I've seen Tim Seeley do better stuff on the writing side. Last story was some futuristic, trippy mech stuff with Nick Dracata, but also giant Batman mech using a gun with a regular Batman standing on top of it, of another nameless Wayne descendant. Not super hot for me on that. Overall, I think this is the weakest issue out of the 3 issues. Gentlemen, what do you think?
Yeah, I thought the Ridley story is stinky. There's lots of elements that feel really forced. That he's trying to do this like race commentary, and I think it just doesn't quite land. It's a little bit aggressive. And then one of the henchmen is like, "Yo, anyone got more meth? I'm coming down." It was just like I just cringed really hard. I know this story, I believe, is being collected in like the next Batman, whatever. Similar to how like the Donny Cates Wolverine story is being collected in the Cosmic Ghost Rider Omnibus or whatever. So yeah, we all dropped off that series and we talked about how we don't like it.
Well,
how it kind of.
That's not true. That Dan read all of next Batman.
Okay, well, I did. So I don't know if this girl character has appeared before, or if this is kind of low key an introduction. The Evely story was a trip. I didn't really enjoy it. It was kind of reminding me of the Emma Rios story from the first issue, though that one was a little bit more trippy. The Kelly Jones was fun, but his art even was a little bit rough. I'm not sure if that's because I think oftentimes he does work with inkers, whereas I guess he's inking himself here. And the Jurata looked really dope, but it's very strange how only one of these stories is actually Bruce Wayne Batman, or even just like a version of. I mean, next Batman has been established, but it's still very new. Like this is all alternate universe stuff completely. I mean, it's kind of like it's not like any of this stuff fits into canon anyways, but a lot of it you can kind of figure it out. But I feel it's really weird that this is the contents of this issue. Like you think that they would spread out these stories, put like one of these in all the other issues rather than have the one issue where it's all stuff that's not really related.
Yeah, but also I feel like at the same time, if you're going to get all these legacy stories, might as well make that kind of a loose theme in the issue and not have like one down story in every issue. I don't know. It's a different side thing. Dan,
I mean, really not much else to report. I mean, it's just, I don't know. They're just anthology
Batman
stories.
was your favorite Batman that wasn't Batman.
I don't know. The one that was in black and white. That was my favorite.
Good answer. Smart answer. I mean, the Olivier Coipel art was fine for the next Batman story, but also it was just like, all right. I think next issue will be better. But Dan, it's your second to last issue of Black Cat.
Yes. So our next issue, as Mike said, is Black Cat number 3, written by Jed MacKay, art by C.F. Villa. Black Cat wakes up in an alternate universe with the Black Fox, who shows all of Black Cat's like fears. So turns out that this is a mirage that's created by Black Cat's exposure to this like chemical that she had last issue that turned her into an Asgardian warrior. So back in this other reality with Fox, Felicia sees a flashback with her dad and her mom, and then an encounter with the Owl, which obviously is famous, harkening back to the spectacular Spider-Man run with her in that storyline. Back in the real world, Strange realizes the only way for Felicia to break free is to do it willingly herself, because if they try to help her they actually will blow up the whole city. So they can't. She has to find her way out of it, and if she doesn't, then it's goodbye for New York, I guess. But back in the reality again, Fox shows Black Cat all of her lovers and people that have influenced her over the years. Kingpin, and then most notably Eddie Brock, Venom. Kind of, obviously alluding to the whole storyline of King in Black. So she's able to break free of its influence, and then she joins Strange in the fight, as she then sends all of her lackeys through a portal to protect them from being harmed, as the lackeys kind of are like, no, don't sacrifice yourself for us. So yeah, that's our issue. And obviously there's still one more issue here at least coming up. If not, I think that's the last one you said. So
No, I'm pretty sure it's an ongoing series.
I'm wrong.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I thought this was just coming back as a 4-issue mini for King in Black. But I do want to ask you, Dan, a question for this, because you pointed out a good point last week, which was, how is Strange? Aren't they supposed to be captured right now? So is Strange in his like weird Asgardian magic thing going on here, or is he just regular Doctor Strange?
I don't think so, because like he was rescued from like that thing with the King in Black last issue. So
right,
he was just like, he actually just woke up from his influence, but I don't know. Like he doesn't really appear too much in this issue. It's pretty much just like a lot of stuff with Black Cat. So yeah, I would have to go back and check that.
Okay. And it did. I mean, once again, you mentioned Doctor Strange, which that takes us to Amazing Spider-Man number 60, which Vince was back for this issue. So we'll see Vince's thoughts on this. Big speculation on the cover, because it originally was solicited just with Pete and MJ and with a heart in the background, and then the real cover came out with the Kindred kind of centipedes around it. So this is Amazing Spider-Man number 60 by Nick Spencer, Mark Bagley, and John Dell. So yeah, big issue we've been waiting for since we saw that cover. And of course, going in here, what's going to happen with Pete and MJ? So, and even said brought back Vince. So the whole gang is back here on Amazing Spider-Man for now, and I'm curious to see Vince's take on this. But the whole issue is essentially, therapy for Pete, as MJ takes him to the abandoned theater that Norman used to own, and we even get a throwback reference to Amazing Spider-Man number 96, where she lets him basically just go out and perform a solo monologue as if he was talking to Harry and if he was there, to get out all of his feelings. And I kind of liked the speech as he's talking. Like, he's not happy with what's happened with Harry. He wishes they were still friends, and he wants to know why he's been influenced by Kindred and what exactly this is. But at the same time, he feels like his life has been stuck in an endless loop and something's happened to it. And then he, basically consoles with MJ, and MJ reveals, hey, she's sticking around in New York. She's not going back to LA. And once Pete leaves, it's revealed that MJ is still working with Mysterio. And basically she's like, yeah, whatever scenes you still need me to film for this movie, I can do here. I'm here for him. And then she's also trying to get information on Kindred and senses that he knows more too. So I like that Spencer definitely called back to this, because we saw that Kindred has had history with Mysterio. We thought originally he killed him, but he didn't. And then also this was a holdover from when Spencer originally had her set up to leave the book when she had her miniseries. So I like the callback, bringing it all back to it. And then the true ending here sees Doctor Strange going to that Hell Casino, I'm assuming in Las Vegas, after the events of Doctor Strange Damnation, to go talk to Mephisto about what exactly is wrong with Peter Parker's soul. And that takes us down that road of, are they going to undo one more day? And I feel like, guys, we're going to have to wait 15 issues, because issue 75 is that real big hyped one, because it's really 875 and it's got the inflated page count and everything. But otherwise, for right here, I like the issue. And once again, Spencer's given me just enough to keep me tugging along. But then after this, we're going to get into that arc with the new costume, which, I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of that costume, and I'm happy it's only going to be around for an arc. But Spencer, I feel like, has done the time. The way I like how things handle is you drop your nuggets, but also, have it intermixed with some fun arcs here and there, building over the course of a large story. Vince, you were back for this, but let's have Dan go first. We'll have you go last, as you're the newcomer once again to this book. So we'll stick with me and Dan, and then go to you.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like you said. I mean, it's enough to kind of keep me interested for now. Obviously, I came into this like series, a few years ago, so obviously didn't come when it first started. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. We'll see. The only thing that would make this issue better is if we actually had our artist drawing it, or the Mark Bagley, which I don't mind, but it's just.
I didn't think Bagley was bad in this issue. I think he was all right. Though, play to his strengths, he didn't have to do a lot of action pages. This was really just kind of still shots.
I still find it weird seeing him like draw like grown up Peter Parker. I'm so used to like seeing like Ultimate Spider-Man.
Do you only see Ultimate Peter now?
I only do. I only see Ultimate Peter Parker when I see Mark Bagley art. So
go back and read the Clone Saga, and then you'll get it'll reset your brain.
Yeah, it's gonna be a no for me, dog. I'm not doing that.
Well, not the Clone Saga. You'll see Bagley in like Epic Volume, like whatever, like 22 through 24 or whatever.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. I mean, I honestly didn't read this super closely. This was kind of my last book. I jumped on it last minute anyways. I have similar comments on Bagley. I feel like we've said this. I was very, very critical of him on Life Story. And most of the mysteries of this series that he's done. It's just, I don't know, because we just referred to his two other major long-term Spider-Man works, in the 90s, where he has, a much, I don't know, he has a different style, and then his style was totally different for Ultimate Spider-Man. And I like both of those, but like anything he's done on 616 Spider-Man since Ultimate Spider-Man ended, it just doesn't work for me really. I don't know, I don't know what that is. And yeah, you joke about 15 issues, tried 200. I mean, there's not really much like, ooh, Mephisto appears on the final page, but like they've made references and comments and jokes about Mephisto related to Spider-Man like every year for the past like 4 years. I mean, that was like a recurring thing in Joe Kelly's Spider-Man Deadpool run. So just like MJ, coming back and the Kindred finally being over, I don't know. When it actually happens.
We know Kindred's not over.
Yeah, I know. And then the other kind of dumb nitpick I'll say is that this book is called Amazing Spider-Man. There's a single page of Spider-Man. There's a single page of Spider-Man in this Spider-Man book.
I knew Vince was going to say something about
that. My counter to this, Dan, you can break the tie, is that there's been plenty of issues where it's mostly Pete and MJ, and Spider-Man shows up for a page. That's happened multiple different eras.
Yeah,
so I'm not going to hold it against it.
We're not in the 60s anymore, Vince. They can't.
It's not the 60s. I don't think Dan Slott would do that. I don't think David Michelini would do that.
Done that.
Dan Slott doesn't do a lot of things like write good comics.
Spider-Man's good. Better than Nick Spencer.
Spencer's better than Dan Slott. You're barely holding on to that Fantastic Four book. You got to convince yourself to keep reading it every week.
That's a different book. But no, I've been enjoying Fantastic Four.
All right. So a book I think we all have mixed feelings on. Dan, take it away with another Marvel Snapshots book.
All right. So another Marvel Snapshots book, Captain Marvel, Marvel Snapshots #1. That's the title. Written by Mark Waid, art by Claire Rowe. I'm assuming they're going to collect all these in like a paperback. I don't know. They'll probably just squeeze it into volume somewhere. Anyways, our next story, as I said, is that our issue opens to a 14-year-old. I'm assuming she's trans. I guess she mentioned that trans people shouldn't like be judged on what bathrooms they use. So anyway, we open up to a story with a 14-year-old trans girl named Jenny, who daydreams about Captain Marvel and gets in trouble at school. So her mom goes up to talk to her for a little bit and leaves her room, officially grounding her on her way out and saying that she needs to stay in her room and not go anywhere. Obviously that doesn't happen. So Jenny goes to like her desk, pulls out like this makeup and like tries to put it on, and she's like, I can't do this. This isn't who I am. So she runs away to the store where she runs, or the shore, excuse me. She runs away to the shore where she runs into a bunch of Avengers. obviously including Miss Marvel and Captain Marvel, because the story would not be what it is without them. So they're busting the Maxian ship. Vince can probably tell us where that comes from. But the two characters talk with Jenny and tell her to be herself as we get flashbacks to both of the characters' backstories. For Kamala, it's a lot of like her upbringing with a Muslim background in Jersey City with her family. And we also get a shot of her kind of wearing the classic Miss Marvel outfit, but it's drawn that same pose that I think the debut of the outfit came in. So that's kind of cool. We saw that little cameo there. Well, not cameo, Easter egg, I guess. We kind of hear about Carol's upbringing with her father, and her father's way over the top in terms of women should be cooking, they should not be on a ship helping with sailing the ship, or you should not go to college and his words, piss away all your money, which I thought was a little too on the nose for what the story is, I guess, trying to convey. But the heroes have to leave, but they tell Jenny to be herself as she heads back to her room and goes to sleep as she prepares for, I think she said, a mutant rally or something, pep rally, or not pep rally, but a rally the next day. So I applaud Mark Waid for what he's trying to get across here. I don't know. I nothing here felt too unpredictable to me. I mean, it kind of had some heart, obviously, the two stories with the characters, but I don't know, nothing really that made me jump out of my seat and go, wow, this is a really great issue.
Yeah, it has the heart's in the right place, but at the same time, it's a 50-year-old man trying to write about current social issues, and I applaud him for trying to make notice of that, but also it's very kind of in a contrived manner. And I think, once again, Carol's backstory has been changed I can't remember how many times now. This, I think, is more in line with the original way I remember it, because her dad is kind of a huge misogynist. And then I do remember her brother got chosen to go to college over her from the Brian Reed run and stuff like that. And then all the stuff with Kamala was good, but yeah, I not focusing too much on our main character of Jenny. I think I don't know if she was trans or not, and that's not something I want to focus on because it doesn't affectionately matter to me that much. Because her mom talks about how up until you were 12 and now you were 15, you were my little girl. So that was the question of why I not. But yeah, it was also just disjointed. She just leaves the house and then just right over the hill, the Avengers are battling a giant ship. I feel like you definitely would have heard that, or there would have been some evac going on there. But then also at the same time, I felt like the art was kind of messy overall throughout it. Some characters are changing proportions and limbs are in different spots here and there on every panel. But I don't know. It's another one of those Marvel Snapshots issues, which I feel like the last time I really enjoyed one of these was the Cyclops one.
This was a fellow kids issue, seriously so, and not just the social issues. I mean, Wade is using words that just are so clunky and just out of place and out of touch. Collectivism. The main character says amaze balls. She calls Kamala fire. You're fire. It's just really clunky. And then I like how Dan is Vincent's to know. I don't know. I didn't know, but I did check. This is apparently the first appearance of the Domaxians, so it's not a thing. And yeah, I'm not. I mean, Mike has definitely read more solo Carol Danvers than I have, but I don't think either of us have read the most recent origin / retconny miniseries, Life of Captain Marvel.
I think I've read the first issue, but I haven't read further than that.
That was the one that goofed around and I guess made her mom scroll, and so I don't know if that remotely would contradict this or at least add more context to it. Who knows? But I do know that her chronology, as she references the Fantastic Four, is wrong. The canon is she's already done her flying career before the Fantastic Four get their powers, and that's because there's a bunch of miniseries from the early 2000s called Before the Fantastic Four, where it shows this is Ben Grimm in the military with Wolverine, or this is Reed doing whatever, and blah blah. And she appears in one of those with Ben Grimm before he's the Thing.
And then also Claremont's X-Men has a connection already with Wolverine. They ran some covert stuff together as well.
Yeah, I mean, and then the art, it had its iffy moments, but I thought it was fine. And then I'm not gonna get into this too much, but I'm not 110% sure what Wade was trying to do, as far as not what he was trying to do, but like what he actually intended as far as this character being trans, because some of the language around it is clunky, and I'm not sure if Wade doesn't understand quite what he's trying to present with this character, and may have accidentally kind of stumbled around it. But that's all I'll say.
Yeah, I mean, we've enjoyed this one more. The other one, if you remember, the other one is Marvel, and that one more focuses on artists. This is the one curated by Kurt Busiek, and this one's more curating on writers with the same shot of that and the guidelines of Marvel's from the famous 1996 series. So this first one we had in a while. I guess it was on hiatus and came back a little bit. Probably some things moved around during the pandemic. But all right, enough on this. We'll talk Ice Cream Man.
Yes. Very quickly, I believe Marvel's 94. So Ice Cream Man, 23rd issue from W. Maxwell Prince and Martin Morazzo. This issue is a mix of prose and splash pages, continuing the different tweakings with format and different ideas with the series. So this story is about a late night talk show host named Mac Benson, and also involved is his executive producer, his wife, an intern that he's sleeping with, and a guest of the show who brought in animals. And it's just like some classic Letterman, or any of these shows, they bring in the animal guy for segments like every couple months. But a giant python crushes around his body and then mauls his face on live TV. And each prose page is from a different character's perspective. So we flip between them, and there is an interesting point where the Mac Benson, because he's been mauled up and he's in the hospital, so he's really high on drugs and stuff. So you kind of get like that psychedelic, trippy kind of first-person perspective from him, which is slightly interesting. You get a decent little angle from everyone's perspective. It's an interesting format experiment, but it's not too captivating in my view. This is definitely one of the weaker issues, but still entertaining. My kind of possible theory is that maybe Morazzo was like, hey, is there any way you can screw around with the format so that I can get a little bit of a breather and get ahead, or back on track? So that's my possible theory. Because he probably drew 10 pages here. I mean, they're all splash pages, which I guess depends on the artist, if a splash page takes more work versus, 8 panels or whatever.
Oh, well, with this, it's every splash page is the same background, so I'm sure you could have just, floated that in and done it as other stuff on top of it. But yeah, that was my same theory too. I applaud the trying of this. It's rarely worked well. Grant Morrison probably is my favorite use of this, with the Clown at Midnight and during his Batman run. Though on that, we can always talk about how bad the digital art is on that story. But otherwise, a great Joker story. Excuse me, that's all prose. This one, I liked what was going on. I liked all the viewpoints of the different characters, and you could definitely see what the comparisons drawing from the various different late night hosts was good. But at the end of the day, though, is if it would have been better as a prose thing just by itself than it would have been just try to mix it, because I would have liked to see more integration of the comics medium here than just splash pages. But it was a good try. Maybe they come back to something like this in the future and nail it again. But as for me on this one, it didn't work well, and this was definitely possibly the worst issue of Ice Cream Man I read since I've hopped on this with you. But I mean, I didn't hate it. It was just more of a slog to get through, because it did feel like it ran a little long. But we'll go to Dan for the first Superman book.
Yeah, and it's a future state book, so boring. Not really, actually. This one's
Hey,
actually half
it's the last
decent.
week of Future State, though, Dan. We're done.
Yeah, thank
Last week.
God. Thank God. I'm tired of this whole whatever the hell this is. Anyway, so our next issue is Future State Superman versus Imperious Lex #2, written by Mark Russell, art by Steve Pugh. We open our story to Lois and Clark in a spaceship as Lois takes off on her mission, while Clark stays behind to tinker with some robots. Lois lands on Lexor to see Lex greeting her, and I guess we've just found out that Lexor has now joined the United Planets Coalition, or whatever it is. Meanwhile, Clark is on Lexor's moon, kind of just scouting out the robots again. Back on Lexor, Lex and Lois talk about Lexor before finding out that the planet has plenty of minerals to power the United Planets Coalition for years. So once Lex discovers this, he pulls a Lex move and ambushes Lois and the survey team who found the crystals, and I think kills some of them in the process, and attempts to secure the crystals for himself and his planet. So Lex then kills a news anchor who the next day reports that the United Planets is Lexor's joining the United Planets. He goes into the newsroom and just vaporizes the guy after he's done with his show. And Clark comes down to the planet to save Lois when he runs into the people of Lexor who are trying to attack him. So he kind of uses the mob mentality against Clark. And then we just pan away and we don't see the actual conclusion of the battle. Only thing we see is that Lois was saved by Clark and that they get away with the crystals, while Lex sits in a bathtub, finding out that he does not own the crystals anymore. So yeah, I thought this was was decent. Obviously, I don't know. I thought it moved. The pacing was pretty good. The story was pretty good. I guess. I can't remember what happened in the first issue, but yeah.
I mean, all that happened in the first one is Superman disables the robots, and Lex's plan is to join the United Federation of Planets and then try to basically use them for all of their perks for himself. And then he gets busted when they find the minerals. I liked it. I liked more that Lois is kind of the hero here, and she saves Superman. You're right. I completely missed it the last time. You guys were really commenting on how bad that Superman costume is, and this time I immediately saw the two-toned legs on the costume, and it does look very weird. And I agree, it's not the best Superman costume in the world. Otherwise, I like Steve Pugh's art. I like what they're doing with Lex too, because he's kind of got different augmentations on him to try to make him look younger. At least that's what I was getting at here, because this is the future. And his vanity wants him to make sure he looks youthful and strong to his people, because he kind of basically is running Lexor as a North Korean type state where he controls everything and just pumping out his propaganda machine. So for that, I liked Russell's handle on Lex here too, where he's just in the bathtub at the end. There's definitely a Gene Hackman vibe to his Luthor, and that's kind of a fun thing to play with here. But otherwise, it's a fine 2 issues from Mark Russell. And if you enjoy Mark Russell, and we got a little bit of his taste in Superman and Wonder Twins, you'll probably like this. But if you haven't read a lot of Mark Russell stuff, and this is the first time you're coming to him, you might not pick up on a lot of the subtle things that he likes to put on commentary in his writing here.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much similar thoughts as the first issue. There's some fun, character comedy and visual things that I like from Steve Pugh. It's not remotely what I would want from the characters in the main books, but Superman has this huge head, square jaw kind of thing. He looks like a character out of Mad Magazine, and Lex is constantly walking around in this issue with a lollipop, which is just slightly funny. and I didn't 100% understand the ending. Like, I don't know that what Dan said is wrong, but like the whole deal with the crystals, it's like I think Superman like grabbed one of the crystals, and then somehow the United Planets was able to figure out the energy, thing with just one crystal, or maybe he like neutralized the energy aspect of all the crystals on Lexor, because I don't think they didn't steal all the crystals. I mean, Lex still has the crystals. It's just for some reason they're no longer of value. And I didn't fully understand what was trying to be set up on why that's. Um, and also, I'm pretty sure this is the end of Future State, but I'm also pretty certain that the final page has a to be continued. So I have no idea what that means. I don't
Yep,
know if they're
it
going to let.
does. And I was like, I have no idea where this gets continued in.
Yeah, I don't know if they're going to let Russell throw out a random one shot. I mean, obviously, we've seen over the past couple weeks as Mesa lists come out and everything like that. We now know that a lot of this future stuff, DC is just continuing like off to its side, like
It's essentially just another line now.
yeah, like the Justice League stuff, and we know the Batman stuff. So it could pop up, and maybe we'll check it out. Maybe we won't. Who knows?
I don't intend on checking out Future State Gotham. That's one of the books they have. And then I don't really intend on checking out Next Batman Second Son either. That's the two that they have running, I think, so far. But I'll go to the second Superman book. Superman House of L #1. This was I feel like we were bamboozled and schmeckledorfed and led astray here. Philip Kennedy Johnson, Scott Godlewski. Nope, this isn't some splintered sequel to Worlds of War like we were led to believe, because the end of that said, go read House of L. I think this was just a way for us to try to go read House of L. This is some like makeshift fake Legion of Superheroes things, but they're all descendants of Superman, spiritually or physically, fighting another evil one. And it's all one big battle. There's kind of like a Game of Thrones feel going on here, as they're all trying to be in control. But I have no concern at the stakes here, because I'm thrown into like 20 disposable characters all at once, and I don't care about any of them. And this is just a one shot. So unless Philip Kennedy Johnson addresses and we see this possible future in his run, which if we do, I'm not really going to care about it there either. I hope he doesn't do that. But at the end, I guess the real Superman comes to save his evil son, but I don't care at that point. This was just a one shot, so like I said, I have no idea if it's going to go anywhere or not. But if this is connected to Future State Legion somehow, because it's still kind of in that time frame. We have the Federations of Planets in there, but I mean, I don't know. Overall, though, Philip Kennedy Johnson's already won me over, so I'm more looking forward to his proper runs in Superman in Action starting in 2 weeks.
Yeah, what's weird is, earlier in the week, a lot of the news sites, the comics press, they'll put out advanced reviews and things like that. And I saw one, I mean, it's just one, but I saw one really good review of this. It's like, Johnson further proves he really understands Superman. And I was already sold on that, from Worlds of War, but I felt like you didn't get that at all
No,
in this.
not here.
It was kind of strange. I mean, there is a moment where, well, Clark shows up again in his stupid costume, and to his evil son is like, "Hey, I'm going to teach you how to be a hero," and it's like, cool, but it like even that moment, it didn't feel like spectacularly written to me. Very cartoony art by Scott Godlewski, but I thought it was good. Yeah, this was kind of 100% characters that I've never seen before, don't care about, and I didn't feel that invested in the world, and the kind of big Superman moment was really kind of a thud for me.
Yeah, wasted because it's in like the final 2 pages. So by that point, you're already not caring.
Yeah, I'm just trying to imagine like somebody who like knows like very little about Superman going in and picking up this book in like a shop. It's like, what? They're probably gonna be confused as all hell. Like, who are all these characters? And
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, like I said, it looks pretty, but
I'm actually not the biggest Scott Godlewski fan, honestly. I'm not a big fan of his.
Yeah, I feel like it kind of changes like a little bit like over the course of this issue. I feel like there's certain shots like the action shots are good, but like the close like the character moments, I'm not a big fan of those.
His faces and heads have these really like striking pointy edges to them, and I'd never really been like a fan of that kind of art style. Kind of reminds me of like some early 2000s manga style a little bit, like a how to draw a manga book. They all had like those very slanted kind of angular heads like that. But other than that, I mean, like Vince said, I'm already sold on Philip Kennedy Johnson on Superman. So we'll find out in 2 weeks when his run starts properly when we hit Infinite Frontier. All right, our last Future State book,
which is the second issue of Aquaman from Brandon Thomas and Daniel Sampier. We pick up with Aqualass, aka Andy, with her leg chomped off. And somehow she commands a weird fish to become her prosthetic leg against its will. So then the rest of the school of fish have beef with her, obviously, because she just like stole their brother and forced him to become her leg. And we have flashbacks to Jackson Hyde teaching her all kinds of stuff. The whole time she's on this like basically this desert island having to fight back things because the fish are sending things after her. And then eventually she gets away from them, and then her leg starts talking to her. She rescues Jackson, what we've been waiting for. He's been held for like years in this pocket dimension or whatever. They rescue each other, they're fighting, but then she goes a little overboard with her powers and everything, and Jackson calms her down, and they win and stuff. And basically the takeaway here is Andy doesn't use her powers responsibly at all, is a total hothead, and is kind of a jerk. I don't know. She forces this fish to become her leg for like weeks and months, and then is killing all these people and stuff. It's not a great showing for her, honestly. I don't know why you would go this perspective. Like, this doesn't make this new introduced character look good, even though it is like an alternate future version of her. So far, I'm excited to get back to. Hopefully, there is a new Aquaman comic, and she's actually like a toddler again. The art and coloring is absolutely great, though.
Yeah, art and coloring, stellar. Writing, meh overall. I liked her more in Future State Justice League, where I felt like she had more of a personality in that book than here. I don't really have a lot to say, just because you summed up a lot of my feelings on it. It overall, though, it felt rushed and incomplete because it's only 2 issues and you're trying to jam as much stuff in, which is a lot of. We've been critical of the Future State books the whole time. If there's anything, I guess I'll take the time to sum up thoughts on Future State overall. Outside of like a few handful of books, I think maybe I would probably say Swamp Thing was my favorite of all of them. But yeah, I'm ready for Infinite Frontier to kick off next week when we get Infinite Frontier #0 and the first issue of Swamp Thing, unless we're going to go back and read Batman 106, which also comes out, and I think there's one other, and I think Suicide Squad too. But I don't think I know personally I'm not coming back to Batman, and then I think I'm not going to actually read Suicide Squad because I know it's supposed to like cross over with Titans Academy and like by issue 4, and I'm just like, I don't want to do one of these 2-book crossovers immediately and a new wide line launch. So that's my thoughts. I'll bring in Dan for a second here. Have any closing thoughts on Future State? But overall, a time filler waste of time would be what I'd go with it.
Let's just say that I'm looking to the future.
You're looking to the Infinite Frontier.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say honestly that there were like 3 books that I thought were actually like great. It would be Swamp Thing.
It's not good when he can barely name a second.
No, I'm just having a major brain fart. Swamp Thing, Wonder Woman, and what was the other one? There was definitely a third one. God damn it. I'm literally
Superman
staring at the
Worlds of
list,
War?
too. Yeah, Worlds of War. Yeah, so those 3 books, Swamp Thing, Wonder Woman, and the main Superman book, like I thought those were actually like genuinely great comic books. And that's I think there were less books in future, or it depends because some of these are like 4 issues, but like it's a comparable batting average to Convergence, which was also a complete mess, but had a couple highlights. But I definitely put this over Convergence actually, because Convergence, its status quo would drag down the things a lot more. So even when you had a fantastic issue of Shazam, it still had to tie into the dumb like domed worlds Convergence story. So it's this really great portrayal and artwork and everything of the Marvel family, but they're like fighting like vampire Batman or some shit or whatever, and vice versa. So in this instance, I mean, those three series that I mentioned, you could pull those out of context and read them pretty well completely on their own. Um, I don't know how it's going to work though, because they're collecting in these families together,
Yeah.
rather than throwing those actually three Superman issues in with the upcoming Kenny Johnson collections, or throwing these 2 issues of Swamp Thing in with the new Swamp Thing collection. At least as we know, I mean, DC is known to sometimes double dip like that, like they did with the Rebirth issues. Um, so I don't know. Yeah, it's over. Kind of waste of time.
Yep, pretty much as we look to, I mean, essentially 2021 starts now for DC, and a lackluster first 2 months of the year. Do they manage to get out of the starting gate and maybe start hitting some and getting on base and maybe hit a triple or a double, to use the baseball analogy here? Because right now they're down some runs. Looking at 2021 by taking up your first 2 months of the year with really, at the end of the day, I as much like, because my books I liked are the same as yours, and I'm sure Dan's list is the same too. At the end of the day, all of this stuff is disposable things we are going to find at cons and back issue bins and Second and Charles and Books a Millions and their $1 comic book back issue bins for years to come. That's what I see for these books. That's what I see for these and the tons of Dark Knight's Death Metal one shots and tie-in books. So like not a good last few months for DC, and we'll see if they can reset here in March 2021. All right, we'll go to X-Men corner now. X-Men number 18, which is Jonathan Hickman and Mahmoud Asrar. We focus on the 3 mutants that were sent into the vault to investigate the children of the vault inside. This is X-23, Darwin, and Synch, or is it Cinch? I feel like you can write it either or. Sometimes words are hard. The heavy focus is on Synch, is he's resurrected, but he came back more powerful. So that's like a note here that some people that have been resurrected come back kind of with their more powers awakened, because we see that he later on basically gets a second mutation where not only can he absorb the powers of not only the mutants around him, but also like other superpowered beings when they fight some of the children. And he ends up killing one of them, and we get a text pages basically saying that the team can break the lethal protocols because of the vault situation, and that the children technically aren't human, so they can get away with it and skirt it that way. Whatever, though, at the end of the day, I think it's a 2-parter, but this went by real fast and was kind of meh for me. But this was one of the big storylines that we saw built up, so finally nice to see Hickman getting back and addressing that. And I like the team. I like X-23. I like Darwin. Plus, he's pretty much won me over here with Synch. He seems pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, this finally following up on that vault story. I think it does continue into next issue, which is very rare for this series. Or maybe it's continuing in 5 issues. I don't know. But if it didn't continue, or perhaps regardless, this was kind of felt really anticlimactic to me. It was like all just, I mean, it's not a wasting time. Like these 3 characters, they're interacting, they have a little bit of a chemistry, but then like the actual stuff that we were waiting for is in like just the last couple pages. I was kind of underwhelmed here.
Yeah, no, basically my thoughts. I was like, oh, cool, we're finally getting to the vault. Oh, well, that's it. Maybe we have some big reveals in the second part. I flipped through New Mutants. The art looks insane. I need to probably catch up.
Yeah, I think this might be the 3rd issue, maybe
I'm
the
3
4th.
issues behind now.
So New Mutants number 16 by Vidi Yala, Rod Reese. Shadow King Amal Farouk has combined his powers with one of the kids to then body swap them all for a moment as some creepy experiment. It's kind of weird. So like Honey Badger is like a water boy or whatever his name is, and she's like, "Oh, your water smells weird." And then one of the other kids is in her body, and they're like, "Oh, when you pop your claws, it doesn't hurt." But in the process, all of their they all kind of like start damaging themselves. So then they end it. And just like in previous issues and on other topics, Scout, aka Honey Badger, is not having it, and she storms off. And then Magic is reprimanding a bunch of jerkwad bully mutants because I guess the like older like teenage mutants like went and like trashed the like hangouts of the younger kids for no reason. And that's kind of the theme of this arc, or at least this part of the run so far, is like particularly the young mutants. They just like there's nothing to do on Krakoa. They don't have organized school. They don't have, the X-Men training or anything like that. They're stuck on an island. Everything's perfect. So they're just like completely aimless. They're not developing their powers. A lot of them are being jerks to each other, things like that. And that's kind of the theme as we've gone along. So Magic reprimands them. And then there are other mutants, again, to the same theme, they're like bored. So they're trolling around and they're like, let's go to Otherworld. And they want to take selfies or something. And they run across Brian Braddock, who, of course, is a crazy nut job. And they're on his shit list, and he does something to them, which is not 100% clear. Then Danny and Karma go try to track down a missing kid and end up following a rabbit. And Rob Reese starts taking things a little psychedelic. There's like a double page splash where a lot of the color is drained out. But then they get captured. They're looking for the missing kid from the selfie adventure that got lost in Otherworld. So they end up getting captured by the Kingdom of Fae, which is one of these Otherworld people. Then there's another subplot which has been going on where Wolfsbane is trying to figure out what happened to her child and trying to get him back. She's depressed about not being able to resurrect him. And other characters show up and they're like, hey, so like Soriro thinks your kid's still alive somewhere. And she's like, that's terrible. He's somewhere out there without me. And, when they expected her to be happy that he's not dead, but it's kind of the similar. And knowing that Vita has a close friendship with both Leah Williams and Teenie Howard, we've seen little elements of Excalibur kind of bleed into this. Obviously, as I said, Danny and Karma are going to Otherworld. They're messing around with Faye. And I believe kind of the Wolfsbane thread, it's very similar to what I think, at least initially, the premise was for X Factor, where it was like people going after and trying to find mutants that are not dead, but like lost or things like that. Like I know I read the first issue, and I think that's what North Star was doing, trying to find the sister. And so perhaps Wolfsbane, perhaps there's a link there, and that's how she tries to find her kid. The stellar artwork, lots of diverse kind of little minutia in the style and the coloring and everything like that. And Reese does the coloring himself. There's several interweaving plots as well, as as my description was clear about. So you kind of, it does feel like you're getting your money's worth, and it's pretty dense here, which is surprising for modern comics, and it's not in a bad way at all, at least in this issue. I'm enjoying this, but kind of to the things that I just said are like generally a positive. This issue stacks on a lot of that stuff, and it doesn't feel super focused. Then there's, of course, the dumb Hickman data pages, which I usually don't even bother with. But one of them is Warpath answering some personality quiz, but he's not even in this issue at all. Like he's not visually on the page whatsoever, and like he's not even really been set up to be in this run. And also, it makes him sound like really stupid. So that was very strange. You're muted.
I swear I hit the button. I'm sorry. Wolverine number 18. Full blown smash and grab job here by Ben Percy and Adam Kubert. Wolverine's still rescuing Maverick and Madripoor, and turned into as like Logan needs Maverick to fight their way out. And, like there's a CIA agent that grabs like the Wolverine's severed arm there, and like consolation, they get that as the consolation prize because they lost getting Maverick. So Logan's like, "Hey, you should come to Krakoa and like fresh start." And Logan's like, "Hey, you should really come." And Maverick's just like not really having any of it. And he's like, "Maybe you'll think about it if you do one small job with me." And they, he teams up with the Mercs and they take out a small thing, and then he takes him to Krakoa and he's like, "This is nice, but I'm not going to join you." And the ending's like Maverick going and meeting with the said CIA agent, so maybe his loyalties lie against Krakoa after all. We'll see. It's it's Adam Kubert drawing Wolverine. Ben Percy delivers a good Wolverine, but meh. I might start checking in and out of this book. I don't know. At the end of the day, this last 2 issues were pretty meh for me. All right, but retro time, and I keep getting the mid 2010s when we roll the random number generator to pick for year, and I'm kind of tired of it. And there's slim pickings every time in the mid 2010s. So I chose Origin 2 number 1 from February of 2014, Kieran Gillen and Adam Kubert. So with that whole long, drawn out thing aside, this is the sequel to the kind of acclaimed but controversial and loathed origin for Wolverine when they finally gave him an origin. But instead of I can't even remember who it was. Was it Peter Milligan who wrote the first one? And anyway, I've already said it's Kieran Gillen this time, but the more things change, the more they stay the same, because 7 years ago, Adam Kubert was drawing Wolverine, and he's drawing Wolverine today. So the whole issue, honestly, this whole book kind of seems like a phoned-in job to me, because the repetition in Gillen's writing, like it has to be a rib. The amount of times just sentences start with the lines "the wolfish man" is utterly ridiculous, as it's all narration boxes just to describe exactly what you're looking at on the page. It's Wolverine running around with the wolf pack and hunts a bear, and he ends up getting his throat torn out because he can't actually beat it. And then he, because he can heal, he just heals, and then that's it. He learns his lesson. And the next issue, it's like Sabretooth is coming. Oh man, like it's bad. Like I have never read the first Origin book, and I only know that when they did Origin 2, it had to have been because cash in, because it was popular. I'm sick of getting the 2010s as my picks, and I'm not going to use my reroll so early, because we get that one reroll, and I'm not going to use it this early. So I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry to my co-hosts, because I feel like if I were to pick some sort of Avengers random like annual, we wouldn't remember that, but we'll remember this. So sorry, not sorry, gentlemen.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this issue would have been better if there wasn't any words. It was just a silent issue. Because you could probably still tell the same story.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, like you really don't need words to describe, like you said. So I don't know. I mean, the art's kind of it's
I would say Adam Kubert's art is worse in this than it was just when I talked about Wolverine 18. I'd say Wolverine number 8 or 10 or whatever. What I just talked about was better than this.
I didn't realize this was so much later. So the original Origin is by Paul Jenkins, but it's from 2001, but it's also from that era and that project. So like Bill Jemas and Joe Quesada technically get co-writer credits, which just means, of course, it was editorially mandated garbage. And basically, Origin 2001, in my opinion, with a couple exceptions, is when Wolverine is no longer a legitimate character. They just completely the 1, 2, 3 punch of Origin, then what followed from House of M, primarily with
because he got his memories back
with the Daniel Way series and everything like that, and then just every single year he suddenly had like 3 more kids retconned into his backstory, and then half of them he killed. One of them is fucking Dawkins, who's terrible. So Wolverine is just a terrible character, completely ruined. I didn't realize this was so much later. This is like over a dozen years after the original.
Yeah.
It's clearly like this must have been this 2014. Like maybe this was when the Wolverine was coming out or something, or maybe Wolverine Origins.
Wolverine Origins was 2009.
Yeah, Wolverine.
Okay.
The Wolverine.
Was right around 2014.
It came out August of 2013.
Okay.
So, yeah, this is coming right after that.
Yeah, so this first issue was released, the street date, which we don't use for our retro, but the street date was Christmas 2013. I imagine they, if not directly tied to that, obviously Wolverine movie, pump out more Wolverine comics. It's weird that they did this so much later, and then, like, it's not like Kieran Gillen was like a huge person back then. I don't think that say Wicked and Divine had launched yet. I think he's writing Young Avengers around the same time. I think we may have even read a Young Avengers for retro.
We read the first issue. We did the first issue.
So I don't know. Like, this clearly feels like a hack job, like a cash in the checks. Also interesting to note that the original series was drawn by Andy Kubert, and this one's drawn by Adam Kubert. And also the art is weird here too. Like, I was questioning whether like maybe this was one of those books where they don't ink it and they just color over the pencils, because there's like the art almost looks like that. Like, it's a little wispy at points, and it some of that is because it's in the snow, and Wolverine's got all of his hair, and then there's a bear and things like that. So maybe I'm overanalyzing, but it looks like Adam may have inked himself, which maybe he usually does, maybe he doesn't. I don't really know, but I think this is this series is even worse than the original. I just completely hate this, but I guess it's worth talking about to say how much we hate it.
Yeah, I was gonna say we're gonna look back and fondly remember. Remember when we read Origin 2, number 1 over AVX Presents number 15 or whatever it was? Like, I had no real solid choices for this one. I did think about possibly using my reroll, but it's February. So, the end of February. So I'm not gonna. I can't use that yet. We got like 10 more months of the year to go. I gotta save that thing for when I need it.
You could have picked Amazing Spider-Man 700.1. Oh wait, never mind. This is not what I thought it was. I thought this was Dan Slott's Learning to Crawl origin retelling, but it's not. It's some Klaus Janson thingy. Never mind.
Yep. Anything else to say on Origin 2?
No, it sucks. Shouldn't exist.
It's not good. All right, guys, picks of the week.
I honestly felt that this was not a good week. I'm gonna give my pick of the week to New Mutants.
All right, Dan.
Black Cat number 3.
Amazing Spider-Man number 60. Yeah, not a strong week. And we're out of Future State, so Infinite Frontier begins next week. We're on to greener horizons, hopefully. That's all for next week. We'll see you next week. Have a good one. Have a week. See ya.